Good morning, Year 6. I hope you're all safe and well. Today is the 24th of June 2020, and today we're continuing our unit on ratio and proportion. And today you're going to make sure that you are able to calculate and represent ratios. So by the end of today's lesson, you should be able to identify where we would use ratio in real life. And there are many different examples, but we're going to look at a few of them today. You should be able to record recipe ingredients using ratio. Alter your ratio to make your recipe suitable for more people. And you should be able to explain how you would use ratio in real life. So let's get started. For today's lesson, you will need your pencil, paper, always your thinking hat. You'll need the worksheets that were emailed to you this morning and your 5-minute timer. Check. The worksheets emailed this morning were entitled Recipe, Ratio and Proportion. So just as we did yesterday, I'd like you to pause the video shortly, set your 5-minute timer and answer as many of these questions as you can. Now let's go through our answers. So answers are shown on screen. Just as I said yesterday as well, if there's any there that you think, oh, I can't understand how we got that answer, then send us an email and we can explain it to you. But I think the majority of them are quite self-explanatory. But if there's something that you need to practice, do not be ashamed, because we all have areas to work on. So just send us an email and we can give you some help in that area. Continuing our work looking at ratio, looking at the relationship between numbers. So let's have a look at this question together. Harold says that for every 3 bananas, there are 2 apples. And Harold says that is the same as 2 to 3. Do you agree with Harold? Explain your answer. So I'd like you to pause the video here and write your answer. In fact, before you do that, let me introduce you to Harold. Here he is. Bet you didn't expect him to look like that, did you? Now, pause the video and write down your answer. Brilliant. Let's go through it. Harold, you're wrong. Poor Harold, he's written the numbers in his ratio the wrong way around. It should have been written 3 to 2, because the bananas are mentioned first and the apples are mentioned second. Remember we talked about how the order is so important. Well, poor old Harold, he has forgotten how important the order is, and he's just written, yep, numbers 3 and 2, doesn't matter which way I write them, but that's not how it is with ratio. The bananas are mentioned first, and it says there are 3 of them, so that must go first. The apples are mentioned second, so they must go second, and there are 2 of them. Why is the order of the numbers important? So let's imagine there are 3 cups of sugar to every 5 cups of flour, and I'm trying to make a cake. And that's what my recipe says. It says I need 3 cups of sugar for every 5 cups of flour. And so I recorded the ratio in my head of, yep, okay, 5 to 3. Would that be okay? Or should I record it as 3 to 5? 3 cups of sugar to every 5 cups of flour is what the recipe says. 3 comes first, 5 comes second. 3 represents the sugar and 5 represents the flour. So the second one here is right and the first one is wrong. If I were to record it the wrong way round, then I would end up using far too much sugar and far too little flour. So the order is very important. The first thing mentioned is the first number on our ratio. The last thing mentioned is the last number in our ratio. So my horse needs feeding 5 buckets of food, but my pigs only need 2 buckets of food. So that's a ratio of 5 to 2. What would happen if I got my ratio around the wrong way? We'd overfeed the pigs and we'd underfeed the horses. That would be a problem. Now let's have a look at another example. We're heading to the beach soon. There are 80 children and each child must pay £15. That means for every 1 child we get £15 towards the cost. So that's a ratio of 1 to 15. Now imagine we got the ratio the wrong way around. How terrible would that be? That would be 15 to 1. 15 children would have to pay £1. That is ridiculous. So it's so important we get the ratio the right way round. Now let's have a look at a recipe for some soup. And I've taken this from the White Rose Year 6 Home Learning. I've got links at the end of this video in case you wanted to do some more tasks. They've got a whole lesson on there as well. Just as I've been doing on a video, they've been doing the same. So it's similar, but not the same. But you can follow the links at the end of the video if you want to. So our soup, this is a recipe for a soup which will serve 4 people. So if you've got 3 more people coming over for dinner, including yourself as well, so that's 4 in total, this is the recipe you'd follow. But what if some more people rang and said, hey, can we come around too? Would you change your whole meal? Well, you don't need to. Just because this recipe is only for 4 people doesn't mean we can't adapt it to make it for 12 people. So we know that if it's for 4 people, we need 1 onion. If it's for 12 people, how many onions would we need? Well, first of all, we have to look at the relationship between the number 4 and the number 12. How many times greater is the number 12 than the number 4? That's right, it's 3 times greater. So 4 times 3 equals 12. Once we know that, we can use that to help us with all the rest of our ingredients. So pause the video and write down how much of each ingredient would be needed for 12 people. Brilliant. So for 12 people, we do exactly the same as what we did when we looked at the numbers from 4 to 12. We times it by 3. We just need to multiply all of our ingredients then by 3. Voila. So instead of 1 onion, we'll use 3 onions. Instead of 3 carrots, we'll use 9 carrots. Instead of 10 grams of cheese, we'll need 30 grams of cheese. And instead of 400 milliliters of water, we'll need 1,200 milliliters of water. Now, have a look at the ingredients for a recipe shown on screen. These are the ingredients needed for 15 cakes, which will feed 15 people. So I want you to first of all have a go at writing out the ratio. You can see butter, syrup, plain chocolate and cornflakes. How much of each of those do we need? Pause the video here and write them in. So the first one is 50, we need 50 grams of butter. Second one, 60 grams of golden syrup, 100 grams of plain chocolate, and 75 grams of cornflakes. So that's our ratio, same order as the order shown in the list. But how about if we needed the number of people, how about if we change the number of people that the ingredients are for? So instead of needing it for 15 people, we needed to be able to feed 30 people. What do we have to do? Think back to what we did with the example I showed you from the White Rose video. I want you to think about what we did there and then have a go at using that same skill to write down the new ratios that we need to feed 30 people. And then do the same with 3 people. Pause the video here whilst you do that. Brilliant. Let's go through the answers. Well, first of all, we know we have to look at the relationship between the number 15 and the number 30. What do we have to multiply 15 by to get to 30? That's right, we multiply it by 2. We have to do the same then with our 50 grams of butter. 50 times 2 is 100. 60 times 2 is 120. 100 times 2 is 200. And 75 times 2 is 150. What about if we were looking at the relationship between the 15 people and the 3 people? Well, we know that 15 divided by 5 gives us 3. So we take our ingredients and we divide it by 5. 50 divided by 5 is 10. 60 divided by 5 is 12. 100 divided by 5 is 20. And 75 divided by 5 is 15. So some of you might have chosen to have looked at the 30 people and looked at the relationship between 30 people and 3 people as well, and chosen to divide it by 10, and that is absolutely fine as well. So well done if you managed to do that. Now go and get cooking. Find a recipe, look at how many it serves, and then look at the number of people in your household and decide whether or not you need to adapt it or not. And then write down those new ingredients and how you'll need to change it. But before you go, I'd like you to first of all pause the video and complete the worksheet shown on screen. So have a go at completing the sentences, draw pictures if you need to, draw the bar model if you need to, whatever helps you find the answer, do that. That's perfectly fine. So pause the video and off you go. Brilliant. Now let's go through the answers. So the ratio of red counters to blue counters is 4 to 5. There are 4 red counters to every 5 blue counters. Now in the second sentence, we're looking at blue counters to red. So we're looking at blue first. We count the blue first. That's 5 to 4. Here are the ingredients for a smoothie. Write down the ratio of bananas to strawberries, strawberries to bananas to blackberries, blackberries to strawberries to bananas, and blackberries to strawberries. Well, bananas to strawberries, we can see that there are 4 bananas to every 2 strawberries. So that could be a ratio of 4 to 2. You might also have written that down as a ratio of 2 to 1, and that's okay as well, because we could simplify it. 2 to 1. If we halve the amount of bananas, we can also halve the amount of strawberries. Strawberries to bananas to blackberries. So for this one, we know we're looking at strawberries first, so that's 2. Bananas, there are 4, and blackberries, there are 6. So we have 2 to 4 to 6. Then blackberries to strawberries to bananas. Well, that one we're looking at the blackberries first, so 6. Then strawberries second, 2, and bananas last, that's 4. Blackberries to strawberries, that's 6 to 2. So well done if you managed to get those. That was all about making sure that we're looking at the order in which we write down our ratios. The ratio of red to green marbles is 3 to 7. Draw an image to represent the marbles. So you could have drawn either of these images. You might have drawn lots of marbles, 3 red marbles and 7 green, or you might have drawn the bar model to help you here. Then, using your image, what fraction of the marbles are red? Well, if you look at the bar model, it makes it quite simple because we can see that our total is 10, and we know that when we're talking about fractions, our denominator is our total. So if our total is 10, then 3 out of 10 of them are red. So that's written as 3/10. If we're talking about the green marbles, we can see that 7 out of 10 of them which are green. So well done if you got that too. Now in a box there are some red, blue and green pens. The ratio of red pens to green pens is 3 to 5. For every 1 red pen, there are 2 blue pens. Write down the ratio of red pens to blue pens to green pens. So that's a little bit wordy. So you probably had to read that a few times because I know I did to just make sure I knew exactly what we were being asked. And then, once I've read the question again, I can then break down, hold on, what information do I have? So we know that for every 1 red pen, there are 2 blue pens. But the ratio above that tells us about 3 red pens. So we first of all need to work out, well, if I had 3 red pens, how many blue pens would I have? If my ratio of red pens to blue is 1 to 2, and I change that so I have 3 red pens, then I've times that 1 by 3. So I need to times my 2 by 3, which gives me 6 blue pens to every 3 red pens. Okay, so now we've got that, we can write out our ratio, which should be 3 red pens to 6 blue pens to 5 green pens. So, well done if you managed to get that. If you wanted to continue some practice on ratio, then I'd suggest you can go to BBC Bite Size and go to What is Ratio? So the link is on screen, and I will make sure I get the links put in underneath this video. But if not, you can always go to BBC Bite Size and just type in What is Ratio, and it'll come up as well. And you can also go to White Rose, Home Learning, Then look under the tabs for Year 6, Week 2, Lesson 2, and there's a lesson there on ratio and proportion, which you might enjoy too. Again, the link is shown on screen, but I'll try and make sure it's put under the video, so do look out for that there. And the worksheet that was emailed to you this morning is all about recipe, ratio, and proportion worksheets. So you'll see there's a recipe that is shown to you for making cupcakes and one for making a gingerbread. And then you need to answer the questions using the information shown on the worksheet. So how many grams of butter would be in each cupcake, so you're looking at proportions as well as looking at ratio as well. There are 3 different levels there, so levels 1, 2 and 3. Choose the level which best suits you and where you feel most comfortable. Remember to email us your work at yr6@grange.harrow.sch.uk. Have a fantastic day. Bye.